welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Iwede. And yes, it's Monday morning. Where are you? Still lying on your bed? The weekend is over, so it's time to get up and get some things done.
Good morning, Nigeria. I can see that Ayuba is smiling, but really today, there's so much sad news everywhere, all over the country.
I agree. Well, Z, sometimes we have to encourage ourselves and just find courage somehow, because if you go by the stories, on us, I know that some people don't even watch the TV these days. They don't even read the dailies anymore because of the kind of stories that you're bound to see, on the papers. But then we have to move on. We have to keep life going, whatever it is. We have quite a lot of disturbing stories. Some of the videos that went viral on social media yesterday about the jailbreak in Jos. Yesterday, we also saw a very chaotic scene yesterday. That's for passengers between Kaduna and Abuja train station. It was a very, very chaotic situation there.
Thousands of people. I could not believe my eyes. And I think despite all of that situation, people still had to even pay extra, to secure a seat.
Of course.
On some of these trains.
That's almost expected, because in the midst of confusion, you'd find that racketeering, people are trying to cut corners and all of that. And in the process, the whole thing will be bloated, and then you lose control. So I think that's expected. But again, for how long?
For how long? That's the question everybody is asking right now.
But we have to find courage. And that's why I'm smiling all over me this morning. The weekend was stressful. How was your weekend?
It was terrible. I actually traveled to Shiroro local government, and I was marveled, to the kind of things I saw. There's a bridge, on the Shiroro Dam, and when you get there, they tell you, when you move over that bridge, you're on your own. I was like, okay,
wow,
we need to hurry up and pack up and move out of this place. That
was quite daring.
It was really, at a point where we were speaking, to some residents in that community, some were actually crying. But as journalists, we need to hold, our emotions sometimes and move through whatever is happening, within these communities. It was exciting, and it was emotional for me as well.
So just for our viewers to know that we have no rest. It's work 247, trying to bring in interesting contents. And from what Z said, you could tell that something is cooking up. And so you should always stay glued. We have stories, very compelling stories for you out there. Now let's take a look at the events of 29th of November in world history, just before we take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. Please stay with us.
of interesting events, that happen on the 29th of November in world history. But for me, the one that really actually caught my attention is the one in 1961, where NASA launches a chimpanzee named Enos into Earth orbit.
Very interesting fact there. Scientists and all of that, once they want to experiment, I think the closest to human beings, according to scientists, are chimpanzees and all of that. So it's easier to use those species of animals to determine, whether certain planets are habitable or not. So it's quite a very significant one there. Well, kudos to the team of scientists.
Have you tried that? Here in Nigeria.
Well, Nigeria is a work in progress.
Okay.
Let me just leave it at that. Let me leave it at that.
Okay.
Because we're still battling with very primary issues, I would say, at the moment. I mean, we are talking about security, how to ensure that people are safe in their homes, how can the roads be safe, how good is the road, as a matter of fact, and all of that. These are still very basic issues. We're talking about accessibility to health, water, very basic things. So I think that we are not yet there, but we are on our way there.
Okay.
Somehow.
We hope one day we'll get there.
All right, well, let's take a look at the stories that made the headlines this morning. And we have in the studio Hamza Idris, General Editor, Daily Trust newspaper, to give us perspectives on the stories that made these headlines. That will be shortly after this break. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they must look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, let's begin with Daily Trust this morning. And if you have a copy of that, if you are yet to have a copy, you can go grab a copy for yourself. Very interesting stories. The first one there at the top you'd find is 1 year after residents remember 48 farmers killed in Zabarmari, somewhere in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. And then also COVID-19, don't punish Africa for Omicron variant. That's according to Adeshina. You'd find details of that on page 4. The lead story on Daily Trust newspaper says Yuletide, hard times for air travelers as ticket prices double. Also, the riders' flights to South fully booked. Wow, today is 29th
of November.
And flight for the Yuletide is already booked. Interesting. Airlines use festive periods to recover losses. Booking racketeering booms. You'd also see we have no power to fix prices. That's according to NCAA. The picture there shows you a screenshot of the Jos Custodial Center that was attacked yesterday by gunmen. The story below that says gunmen trapped after attacking Jos Prison. You'd find details of that on page 8. And then at the very bottom, ticket racketeering. Passengers stranded at Rigasa train station. You'd see also mobilized to grab power in 2023. IU tells youths. FG sets March 2022 target for Ajakuta audit. That's on page 24. These are the stories that made the headlines this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. On page 20, you'd find banks' earnings hit 2.64 trillion naira in 9 months. That's according to reports. You'd also see on page 20, power generation falls by 849.2 megawatts. Gencos blame consumers. And on page 2, Ramaphosa visit Omicron. Virologists differ as federal government lists delegates for testing on day 2. One of the riders, a South African delegate, to present negative PCR test result. That's according to Nigeria's federal government. The other rider states isolate, test delegates on arrival, or postpone visits, says Tomori. And the lead story on the Punch newspaper this morning. Federal government bans 91 billionaires, VIPs, jets, insists on 30 billion naira duty. One of the riders, top pastors, business moguls, banks and oil firms, CEOs affected. NCAA, FAN, NAMA gets letters to ground affected planes. Aviation Ministry, Customs on warpath overflight ban directive. And you'd also see a pictorial there showing motorists, commuters caught in Lagos Ibadan road gridlock. Federal government says diversion will last 6 days. Well, that's quite a long time. And on page 8, as an introvert, I shouldn't have been in politics. That's according to Goodluck Abele Jonathan. And page 4 and page 5, grandma, granddaughter die, hoodlums scoop field, attack firemen, others in Ogun tanker explosion. And you'd find on page 4, operatives raid Daniel's hotel, strip guests naked, ex-governor decries shooting. These are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right. Now, we'll take a look at the Nation newspaper, and the first story there talks about security strengthened in Southwest over terror alert. You'd find that on page 6. And also, the Nation wins CITN Outstanding Print Media Award. You'd see also 5 INEC commissioners to retire December 5. Nigeria to benefit from 4.3 trillion naira, $4.3 trillion digital services. And then below the nameplate there, you'd see also Omicron COVID-19 variant triggers global alert. The lead story on the Nation: troops take over Plateau Custodial Center after attack. Gunmen trapped in facility. Situation under control, says NCS. Also, you'd find Kuru. 84% of 4.4 trillion naira AMCON debts without collateral. I believe that's a report there. And then these are the major stories. At the very bottom, you'd find also mother, child burned to death in tanker explosion. Again, for the upturned time. This tanker explosion, it's a tragic one, but it's sad how it's becoming almost a ritual. It's like a tradition. You see that happen almost every now and then. Well, these are the major stories on the Nation newspaper.
Okay, The Guardian. Omicron, return of travel bans dampen oil future. Air travel. That's the lead story on the Guardian newspaper this morning. You'd also find on page 3, Ben Obi fault Ken Namani on killing Obasanjo's 3rd term. On page 5, gunmen storm Jos Correctional Center. You'd also see South Africa tourism industry thrown into chaos. You'd also see quite a huge dump site there around police signboard bus stop along Airport Road, Lugbe, yesterday. Still on page 2, you'd see, don't overburden us. Nigerians warn federal government on fuel subsidies.
All right then. Well, these are the stories that made the headlines this morning. Let's now get perspectives on the stories here. We have in the studio, like we told you, Hamza Idris, General Editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program.
All right, now let's begin with Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Very interesting stories here. Transporting is becoming a problem, just like we are seeing with the lead story, talking about Yuletide. I mean, we are seeing now over-concentration, seemingly, on the flight, or I would say on the airline travels. Is this unusual,
It's not. Because any other person who can afford, even if it means you arriving at your destination with less than what you paid for the airfare, people believe that is the way to go because of the insecurity. So the only option available for many people is to travel by air. Wherever you are going, you just pay because the roads are no more safe. You might be abducted. And then accidents because of the terrible state of the roads. So the safest option is the air travel. Yeah, and followed by the rail. Yeah, the trains, people also patronize them, but the routes are extremely limited. Like in the whole of the north, you only have the one from Abuja to Kaduna.
Right.
That is it, vibrant, and in the south maybe Lagos, Ibadan. But for the air travel, you go to many states across the country, and instances, at the end of the year, you have high traffic. But it's like this year, it is unprecedented because of the number of people who are booking ahead of time so that they will be able to make it home to celebrate Christmas and New Year.
Okay, so would you say that air carriers are taking advantage, of the whole security situation in the country to extort people?
Yes, we discussed with prospective travelers. Our reporters visited the airport, especially in Lagos, and then we carried out sampling by visiting the websites of most of the carriers. Somebody said he wanted to book, and then it was COVID top. Then whenever he tried it, you will see that the fare, was changing simultaneously. If he selected, let's say from 35,000, it shoot to 50, then he tried again, he will not get it. Then after like 20 minutes, he will see that the fare. So the carriers are also taking advantage of the desperation. There is immense desperation among the people to secure tickets. But we noticed that the pressure is on routes to the southeast and south-south, especially from Lagos and from Abuja, compared to the pressure from Abuja to some northern states.
All right. Now, what danger does this pose, for us? We are aware that we have very limited aircraft, and the airline companies will be doing everything to, maximize the opportunity, take advantage of the situation. But then there's a risk, involved with this. By the time you have an over-bloated airport with many people trying to travel at the same time, the airlines may not necessarily say, okay, hold on, we cannot fly today because we have to run maintenance, for instance, and all of that. So is there a danger around this?
Of course, multiple. First, the safety of the airlines. Meaning this is time for the regulatory agencies to put an eye on how they are using the aircraft. Because of the pressure, there is the tendency that some of the aircraft will be deployed multiple times. They will be moving from this axis to the other in order to, meet up with the challenge of the moment. So there is a need for relevant authorities to put an eye, especially in the area of maintenance. And then for the congestion, you will have it because there is a likelihood of having delays. Because if they created additional options, meaning people will have to wait. We noticed this in the last 2 weeks when the traffic controllers embarked on, there is a term they call it, it was like they were protesting after one of them died in Abuja. So they said for every timing, they will delay it for like 1 hour, 2 hours. It caused a lot of chaos at the airports. So we expect a lot of chaos in the airports because people will be trooping to beat time. And then sadly, you can see we have another challenge with the COVID thing. And by the time you allow people to be in one place, the tendency is that we'll have more cases of the COVID-19.
Okay. Now we're seeing, one of the riders, according to the NCAA, saying we have no power to fix prices.
Yes, the aviation sector, has been liberalized, meaning factors of demand and supply take charge. And then, in economics, the more you have demand, meaning the price will naturally go higher. And the less the demand, the lesser the price. So NCAA, that is Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, we contacted them that, okay, how can you help? Because it's so scandalous that a route that you normally pay between 35 and 37 is now as much as 80,000, 90,000. And we discovered something, some funny touts in the airport. They connived with the ticketing officers of the various airlines to hold the ticket. What did they do? They put different names to book the tickets. We realize it's not that this is a natural thing that people bought all the tickets, but most of the airlines, their workers, they connived with some touts. They bought the tickets using fictitious names. Yes, and by the time you go, if you try to book, you will not be able to do that. But when you go to the airport, and then they will tell you that I have a ticket. Will you buy it? So they bought the ticket probably at maybe 60. They will now say, if you are willing to pay 120,000. And then they have the machines there, these photocopiers and all that. They say, okay, we'll give you ID card because you need the ID card to get your boarding pass. Yeah. So criminals everywhere. So they will now give you an ID card bearing the name that they booked the flight. So you now pay them another 10,000. They just snap you and then give you. Then you go and get your ticket, meaning using somebody's name to, board an aircraft to your destination.
But who is supposed to be in charge of this in terms of making sure that this does not happen? When we hear, the NCAA say that they cannot control price, it becomes worrisome. Who is supposed to be in charge and making sure that passengers are not exploited in this instance?
Yes, they said, when we talked to them, they said they have limitations, you understand, and they cited the forces of demand and supply. So what will they tell the airliners? And then the airliners also gave some reasons as to why they increased the fares, which may not be true, including the rising cost of the dollar. They said they maintain the aircraft and almost every other thing about it in dollars. Yes. And then apart from that, they said some, off the record, said in previous months they incurred a lot of losses because the demand was low while cost of maintenance and other variables extremely high. So this is the time for payback. Yes.
Okay.
We're also seeing, another story about ticket racketeering as passengers are stranded at Rigasa train station. We have a clip of that where we saw some of the passengers, reacting to that situation. Take a look.
your name and how you managed to enter?
My name is Ali Abdullahi, and I'm also special assistant to the president for media and publicity.
Yeah, how you managed to enter the train?
Well, you can see I managed to enter by squeezing myself through a very large crowd, a crowd that I've never seen before on this in this station or even in Abuja station. There are still hundreds of people, as you can see, trying to actually make through. I have my own ticket. Most of us in the queue or in the crowd have our own tickets, even though the site is actually crashed. So we have to actually get these tickets on the, on actually through the counter. But still, it's a nightmare. It's chaotic.
So what is responsible for this?
I think two things. Mostly, one reason it's because we all know the situations on the Abuja Kaduna Express Road because of the recent increase in attacks by bandits. So nobody wants to follow the roads. Everybody wants to take the train, which is safer. But I think there is also lack of organization on the part of the management of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. The ticketing was not working. Online ticketing was not working. Unfortunately for this weekend, the site is down, it's crashed, but people have to travel. So this is the reason. Two things: lack of online ticketing at the moment, and also the situation, the worsening situation of insecurity on our roads.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
Musa who?
Musa Ibrahim.
Okay, how you managed to get on board the train?
Fortunately, I was scheduled to go with 10:35. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a ticket. There was a lot of big stuff. The land platform is not even going through. We came to buy tickets manually, but we were told that it was sold out. I now had to buy 2 o'clock. Even the 2 o'clock, to get to the train safe, as you can see, you can shift the lens to the other side, you will see what is happening. It's a mess. It's a mess. I think the authorities should see this. It's a mess, and it's a disgrace.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
They do it more than 6. From what you can see.
What happened?
See Nigeria, not funny.
What's your name?
My name? Name withheld. Name withheld.
Okay.
Yes. I really suffered, like I went through hell.
Today?
Yeah, today. Being the 28th of November, 2021. I got a in this country with my ticket. I suffered. See my handbag. They spoil my handbag for me. They spoil my handbag. And I'm still here. Simply because they are selling tickets for IMIT. We that we are the ordinary citizens, but we are nothing for us. We have to go through hell before we secure tickets. Even before we bought them, it's crazy.
Yes.
You don't go up and we don't know time for
Very chaotic scene there, and very, very sad, you know, for us to be having this experience. Now, this is the story. You can find details of that story on page 6 of the Daily Trust this morning. And some of us, you know, had that experience, you know, of recent. But one will just ask the question, just for how long, you know, do we have to go through this?
We have merchants of doom, some people who deliberately pray that we should have these scenarios. It is very sad because of the get quick syndrome. The reason given by the railway authorities was that the site crashed. So you can see how we are deliberately sabotaging even the technology that's supposed to make some, you know, of these things easy. We sabotage the technology. Ordinarily, if people had booked online, naturally, you know, if you don't have the ticket, you have no business going to the train station. But along the line, maybe somebody directly or indirectly did not do his work, and that was what paved the way for the website to crash. And then they directed people to go to the station and then buy the tickets manually.
But the question that I would even like to ask is that even if the website crashed, is that a reason for this kind of chaos? I mean, the authority, the railway authority already knows how many people should ordinarily be, you know, conveyed, you know, per time on these train stations.
Well,
so what exactly is happening? Is it that they cannot control the crowd?
You see, it is action and reaction in science. People don't want to follow the Kaduna Abuja road because of its terrible state, but in terms of, you know, the safety and other factors. So almost every other person trooped to the Regasa station from that end to see if he will get space in the train heading to Abuja. Assuming the road is safe, people will have another option. So we have limited option in terms of transportation and any other thing in Nigeria. In other climes, you realize that even inland waterways will suffice, because I don't think if there is any state that you don't have maybe, you know, stream that even light boats can pass, but we don't even maintain them. Look at what happened during the rainy season. We don't hear of hazards on the inland waterways these days because it's no longer rainy season, and then the waves are low. But assuming we have a saner waterways, people will travel. You have multiple options, but now only air, road, and then the rail. And they also have extremely limited options. Do you have airlines from Kaduna to Abuja? From time to time, when the pressure is too much, then you see the people with small aircraft now deploying them. Say, okay, pay 35,000 or thereabout from here to Kaduna, where ordinarily people should even trek. I mean, what is the distance between Abuja and Kaduna? But it's now here. It's between life and death.
Right. And you know, from that video, you know, that we're seeing, it looks like it's going to be catastrophic in December.
Yes. Personally, I will advise that people should just remain where they are. Yes. Because you have to be alive to even celebrate. And if the options for you to travel to go and meet your loved ones is not there, thank God we can still communicate. And then the governors who actually serve as motivation for the seizure of telecommunications, they have all backed out of the option. Now telecommunications are back in Kaduna, they are back in Zamfara. Call your loved ones and then greet them. Remain where you are. Because it's so chaotic that you are not even sure, even if you have the money, whether you will be able to travel.
Right.
Now, the issue about COVID-19 and transmission and all of that seem to have been thrown to the winds now in the midst of this kind of chaos. Nobody seemed to be wearing any face mask. Nobody seemed to care whether there's COVID or not. And we just live our lives as though there's no more COVID.
God has been with us. I'm telling you, Africans, and God is merciful. If not, I don't think if there will be anybody on the street, all of us will have gone. If you look at how it devastated the advanced world, look at what happened in India, for instance, in the US, in UK. These advanced societies that they have the wherewithal to tackle the menace. But look at how people were falling on this. There was prediction that something like that will happen in Africa. But God, the merciful God, He knows that our leaders have failed, and then He stood by us. But we shouldn't take that for a ride. You can see how the new variant is mutating. Every hour is mutating. And we are still having we are having the cases here. Only that because of our faith and all that, immediately somebody dies, you just go and bury him without doing postmortem to check the reason. But I can assure you that many people are falling to the COVID in Nigeria and other African countries. So we have to be very careful. We have to embrace the use of face masks, hand sanitizers, social distancing, and all that.
Okay. And are there things that we should be concerned about in terms of security as well? Looking at that convergence, the kind of concentration of people at the same spot, for
as I say,
a long time.
Criminals are taking advantage of that. If you go back to the Regasa station today, somebody will narrate his experience. Probably their luggage have been stolen, their phones, money, and all that. Apart from the emotional trauma, people take advantage. This is one thing we are really having as a norm in this part of the world. People taking advantage of misfortunes of others to shortchange them. Now the touts in the train at the train stations, at the airports and all that, now this is the time for me. For over a year or two, I didn't get anything, so this is the time for me to recover. You can see even some of the airliners, what they are doing. It is the same thing at the train stations. So it's a very sad situation, and we need to change our attitude to one another.
All right. Now, we will talk about yet another incident that happened over the weekend, just yesterday, this time around about the prison break in Jos Plateau State. We have a clip from that incident, so just take a look at it.
Be careful. May enter. Where? Who's this one?
Because I'm in now. Let's go into the other side now.
Why is the ABC now?
Who can lead us? Who can lead us inside? Upstairs is clear.
This is where the fire is.
The fire is coming out from.
There's water. If not, if the fire enters this place, we'll have to.
Is it outside?
They're inside. They're inside.
They are in their cells.
They're inside yourself?
The inmates are in their cells.
Let us sure. Let us sure.
From the back. Okay, from the back. Yes. I am sure the attackers have taken cover and entered the cells. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to count our inmates. Yes.
But we take us up for 7 now.
The cells are open now. All the cells are open, only that the inmates have run for cover inside. And the attackers have followed them.
The cells are open.
No, they are open. All the cells are open. No, the water is from this. You know, they do this door. This wooden door. Has caught fire. So one is water through that.
Let's call fire. Call fire services now. Call fire services. They should come. Fire services to come. Call fire services.
Yeah.
Another sad one there, isn't it, Ayuba? I could actually hear one of the, security operatives saying, meaning, what do we do now?
I mean, classical example of someone who is overwhelmed, who has no clue as to what to do. So, yes, we commend them for even making an effort to repel these attackers. But again, you could sense that something is missing somewhere in terms of coordination, of the men on ground and all of that. And perhaps is why we've had this, jailbreaks happen every now and then, in our prison cells. We have a timeline of the jailbreaks that has happened in Nigeria from 2016, showing just right away on your screen. Not this. In Nigeria, we've had several of these jailbreaks. This is a different caption. Well, let's just highlight some of them. What we have is that
on the 23rd of October 2021 in Oyo State, 122 inmates escaped. On the 12th of September 2021 in Kaba, Kogi State, 240 inmates escaped.
And then, of course, you also see on the 19th of October, remember the hashtag #EndSARS period, where we had several jailbreaks. On the 19th of October 2020 in Edo State, about 1,993 inmates escaped from that incident. On the 22nd of October 2020 in Ondo State, we had 58 inmates that escaped. And then an attempt on Ikoyi prisons in Lagos State. We also had the 5th April 2021 Imo attack, where you had 1,844 inmates, that escaped. Also, there was an attempt in Bauchi. And then 3rd of June 2018, we had in Niger State, where 200 inmates escaped. On the 9th of August 2016, in Nsukka, Enugu State, you had 15 inmates that escaped. And the 29th of July 2016, Cotton Karfe in Kogi State, the custodial center there was attacked. 13 people escaped. On the 24th of June 2016, in Kuje, 2 inmates escaped. Now, in total, over the past few years, we've had at least 12 jailbreaks. And then about 4,369 inmates in total escaped. Of that number, 3,906 inmates are still at large. To show you the magnitude of this, practice, or I'll say phenomena, in our recent times. And we keep hearing from the authorities that, look, measures are being taken to ensure that there is no future occurrence of these things, but they just keep happening. What are we not getting right, really?
We will not get it right until we do the right things. Number one, most of our correctional facilities, as they call them now, instead of prison, they are colonial relics. Yes, they don't have the real semblance of custodial centers when you compare them with what you have in other climes. If you visit them from the gate, you know they are not even habitable. And then considering the sophistication of crimes and criminality, you see that most of the inmates, they know that they have the capacity to escape. And then their colleagues outside also believe that such places are so vulnerable that with little effort, they will be able to overrun the facilities. This is one. And then secondly, how many people, the prison guards, how many do you have taking care of hundreds of inmates that are overcrowded? Because I don't think if there is a single prison facility in Nigeria that keeps to the rule, that is, if it is meant for 500 inmates, you have 500 inmates. Some of the facilities that are meant for 500 inmates, you have up to 1,000.
Okay, I think we're going to quickly get back to that. We need to go on a short break, to fix some technical hitches. Stay with us.
All right.
What is the problem?
Well, thanks for staying with us. You are watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. We have in the studio Hamza Idris, General Editor, Daily Trust newspaper, giving us perspectives on the stories that made the headlines. Now, before we went on that break, we were talking about the jailbreak in Jos, Plateau State, just yesterday. There was an attempt there. From what we know so far, the security agents were able to repel the, well, we were told that the attacks, the attacks were trapped. The attackers were trapped, you know, in the prison cell and all of that. And well, it's quite appalling. And we're taking a look at, you know, the records in the recent times, you know, what has been happening and why they have been happening. So, if you may continue your thoughts on that.
You know, as I was saying, most of our custodial facilities are so vulnerable, and then they are an easy target for criminals. This is one. And then secondly, they are colonial relics. They don't have advanced technology to really answer their name. This is two. And then the third point is that we changed the name from Nigeria Prison Service to Nigeria Custodial Center or whatever. It's just a misnomer, honestly, because what is there in a name? If you change a name, you should also change the system. You should also change the facilities you have there. You should also change the mindset of the people who are working there. You heard the voices of the prison warders there. One of them saying, okay, what do we do? The other was saying, who will lead us? Meaning they were ill-prepared for this kind of thing. They were taken unawares. Because if they were ready, in the first instance, they would repel the attackers because they will be alert. They were not alert. Probably they were listening to music in their phones. So I'm not trying to you know, dismiss them, but honestly, they were not ready.
Now, if you look at the implication of this, you know, what kind of danger does this pose, you know, for us as a nation? We've had stories like, you know, one inmate who went out of the jail and went straight and attacked one of the witnesses that, you know, gave testimony about him that led to his, you know, conviction. So,
yes,
when you hear things like that,
last week here in the Daily Trust, we did a library work, and then we discovered that 371 kidnappers, you know, who escaped from 2 correctional facilities, you know, in Imo and in the Kwara State, they are at large. And you know what a criminal, a hardened criminal, one hardened criminal, what he can do. Now you have 371. This was based on our in-house, you know, investigation, just from 2 custodial centers. Now imagine we were able to put together those that escaped from the 12 cases in point, because we mentioned 12 incidents of jailbreaks in the last 2 or 3 years or thereabout. It is very sad. Now, from these incidents, you have armed robbers, you have terrorists, you have rapists, all sorts of criminals. But the saddest part is that more than 80% of them were awaiting trial. They were awaiting trial. They have not been convicted. So you just keep them there. And there is a difference between what you do to a suspect and what you do to somebody who has been convicted. So it's a systemic problem which will require deliberate collaboration between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. We should have fewer people who are awaiting trial instead of the other way around. And then secondly, we should make sure that our custodial facilities really answer their names, because many people who have you know, less issues, you understand, compared to the hardened criminals, you see them mixed up with the hardened criminals, and by the time you bring them out, they have been hardened at the custodial facilities. So we are just going, round in one place, creating more troubles for ourselves, creating more troubles for the next generation. We have to get it right in our judicial system.
All right, now, how will this, impact on the last point you made about judicial system? For instance, when we talk about the wrath of the law will catch up with you, or this and that, so for criminals and for intending criminals, this kind of incidents, how does it impact in deterring, people who are having plans to engage in one criminal activity or the other?
No, there is no any positive dimension to that, because the criminals believe that even if you arrest them, you take them to court, the judges will tell them will tell the prosecutors to go and keep them, and give another day. Diligent prosecution is lacking in Nigeria, right from the point of arrest. Because at the point of arrest, there is the need for you to have this forensic capacity, whereby you will have enough evidence so that when you take the suspect to court, within 2 hours or 3 hours or within few days, you should be able to provide enough evidence that will leave the judge in no doubt to convict the suspect. But right from the point of arrest, we have issues.
Right.
So you see the prosecution endlessly trying to provide evidence so that the judge will now convict. And courts, they are not Father Christmas. You have to prove your case. Even if you see somebody stealing, you have to prove that he was actually stealing. And that is why you see lawyers defending criminals, they'll look at these loopholes to, make cases so protracted and frustrating that you see somebody exhausting even the time he's supposed to spend as a convict while awaiting trial.
Right.
A case of maybe that will attract 6 months jail, you see somebody in the prison for 2 years. And before you know, you have turned him to a hardened criminal.
Like in the recent case of Rashid Maina, where we saw a smiling face of someone who is good to the jail. And
honestly, maybe somebody told him that, don't worry, in the next 3 months you will come out, and they will not even know that you are out of the prison.
Terrible. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and giving us perspectives, the issues making rounds this morning. Our next guest is here, and he'll be joining us shortly to take a look at some other burning issues making rounds all over the country. Stay with us.
latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. TrustTV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And then now we're about to go into the next discussion on the program, talking about the declaration of bandits as terrorists. The Federal High Court in Abuja has declared the activities of bandits as acts of terrorism. Now, the verdict strengthens the call on the federal government to declare bandits ravaging the north, western and north central regions as terrorists. Muhammad Abubakar, the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation, had filed an ex parte application seeking to proscribe the grisly activities of bandits who have been waging a relentless war against ordinary Nigerians in the northwest and north central states. Now, the bandits have been vicious in kidnapping and killing their captives across Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, Benue and Sokoto state. Now, quite a lot of reactions have trailed these proscribing of bandits as terrorists. Now, let's take a look at the contextual definition of what terrorism means according to the Nigerian laws. It's quite a definition that some said, well, it's vague, but let's have a look at it. Now, in Nigeria, terrorism has been defined in Section 1, Subsection 2 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2011 as, in this section, act of terrorism means act which is deliberately done with malice, aforethought, and which one may seriously harm or damage a country or an international organization, is intended or can reasonably be regarded as having been intended or can reasonably be regarded as having intended to. And then also it talks about unduly compel a government or international organization to perform or abstain from performing any act, seriously intimidate a population, seriously destabilize or destroy the fundamental political, constitutional, economic and social structures of a country or an internal organization, and so on. These are some of the contextual definition. Now, otherwise influence such government or international organization by intimidation or coercion and involves or causes, as the case may be, an attack upon a person's life which may cause seriously bodily harm or death, an act of omission in or outside Nigeria which constitutes an offense within the scope of a counter-terrorism protocols and conventions duly ratified by Nigeria. Now, this is the context in which we'll be looking at, the definition of terrorism, in this context. And now we have in the studio Umar Yakubu. He is Executive Director, Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch, to give us perspectives on this. A lot of people are saying, well, you have prescribed Boko Haram as terrorist more than 10 years ago. IPOP has also been prescribed. The Shiite group has also been prescribed. Now you have prescribed bandits. And so what? That's the conversation that many Nigerians are asking. What is different about this?
Well, okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me. That law we just read, and there's an updated version. That's the 2011 Terrorism Prevention Act. There's a 2013, which Section 3.2, if I'm correct, adds the act of murder, kidnapping, which if you read it within the context, it involves banditry or the activities around banditry. Well, I will agree with you in that regard that really nothing has changed by changing their names. But when you designate a group as terrorism, it elevates them to an international status, which means the government now needs to take actions that applies to international terrorist groups to them. But what we will have an implementation problem is when you proscribe IPOP, proscribe all the Boko Haram, they are all organized organizations. They are an organization, they have a leadership, they have a hierarchy, they have people they report to, but for bandits it's not the same. So it's even difficult to implement. But their actions constitute acts of terrorism. That is very clear. Where you are right again is all their actions, and the murder is covered with our criminal code and penal codes of Nigeria. When you steal, it's covered by existing laws. So when you kill, it's covered with our existing laws. So all the crimes revolving around their activities are covered by existing laws. So the only difference is now you have elevated them so that there will be more action taken against them.
Okay, so, some experts are saying that the pronouncement is belated. Are you of that opinion as well?
Well, not really, because in all honesty, most of their activities are domestic crimes. So usually terrorist groups is when they cause harm internationally and locally and internationally. Though you can commit acts of terror within your country and still be proscribed. So I don't think it's really late. It has just enhanced them to another level of overview where their acts are now known by the international community, because there's this story that most of them come from other parts of the country. They are not really come from Nigeria.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Now, what you started by saying was that declaring them as terrorists elevates them to an international status.
Yeah.
And by so doing, it means that it will require a kind of a transnational kind of effort to deal with them.
Yeah.
For instance, in terms of funding, of these organizations, there will be this collaboration and synergy between the Interpol and all the intelligence institutions, all over the world. How has that helped, in curbing, other forms of criminality? Like the Boko Haram and all of that. For instance, there have been talks about, sponsors and people who fund, terrorism activities some time ago, and even some names were given, and we haven't seen, much that has happened as far as that is concerned.
Okay. In terms of seeing what has happened or what has not happened, I think you should invite maybe the Nigerian police to speak to that. But the reason for that transition now, let me give you an example now. You want to buy weapons, let's say from the United States of America or other European countries. They have strong human rights laws, because if you are going to buy super armory, so let's say the super Tucanos now, you have to tell them why you are buying such arms. Now, if you are buying it to use against your citizens, they are likely, the Senate is likely not going to allow that sale to go through. So now, if you tell them you are buying it to use it on your local citizens, they will think you are going to abuse the rights of people. But now when you tell them you are going to fight terrorists, which are covered under United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373, that was after 9/11, you know, the whole world changed and there was a wider scope of what covers terrorism. Initially, it was just groups, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, here and there. But after 9/11, they broadened the scope to include activities of what the bandits are doing right now. So once they broadened the scope in 2001, Security Resolution 1373, now it covers all the kind of activities that are doing. So meaning it's an international problem because they cause havoc domestically and internationally. So that is another area that we need to look at now, that this designation now, that's the elevation I'm talking about now. Anywhere their finances will be blocked, if there are, but don't forget I told you, they are not as organized as the other 40, 50 designated terrorist groups that we have in place right now. So that is where I think government is going to have a problem in them because they are not organized and they are spread across everywhere. Lastly, don't forget there's an international dimension to sometimes the crimes they commit. There's this theory where they say the terrorism in the banditry rather in Zamfara is caused by mining. And who are those mining? They are foreigners. So this is the international dimension I'm trying to talk about.
Okay. Now, are there likely consequences that we are going to see following this pronouncement?
Yes, hopefully. Hopefully, I think there will be, because now the government will have the right to use the right type of arms that was bought for their use. Instead of using it on Boko Haram, or rather, as you're using it on Boko Haram, you can use it on the bandits as well. So that is what I expect. Secondly, if there's any form of financing amongst them and amongst their network internationally, there'll be more eyes on the financing or who is financing them, whether they're doing it for the gold or for the jewelry or for whatever speculation they're talking about. That will be handled. But like I said, for the effectiveness, I think it would be nice to be calling the law enforcement so that they explain why, like you rightly said earlier on, okay, you proscribed Boko Haram, you elevated them, what has happened, and so on and so forth.
All right, now another dimension to this, is the fact that yes, we have proscribed, bandits and all of that.
Yes, sir.
But again, despite the international dimension that this is likely going to take, how important, is having a better, efficient security system, locally, for this to really have effect. How important is it? Because again, if the local system is not, made more efficient, at the end of the day, it may just turn out to be, a fruitless effort. So how important is it, for us to beef up or maybe make our local security system much more efficient?
Well, for me, and this may sound a little bit radical, is I don't think there's enough political will to do the right thing. You talk about laws, like I told you before, even designating them as terrorists, we have enough laws to cover criminality in this country. You don't need any designation. Now, who are those supposed to implement the laws? The Nigerian police and so many agencies are involved because there are immigration issues. Some come from across the border. Who are those checking our borders? But if you check your papers, in the last 10 years, I have not seen anybody being prosecuted or jailed for negligence of duty. People are being killed. We don't know who is being punished for allowing that thing to happen. Arms are shipped. You see a whole, in fact, the small and light weapons in this country, from the last committee by Ambassador Imohe, if I'm correct, I think we have one of the largest in the region. So where are all these arms coming from? Wherever they're coming from, there's somebody responsible for ensuring they don't come. So as long as these things are happening, this, unfortunately, in my view, this insecurity is going to continue. We have to control the influx of arms into this country. There are way too many. And the danger, the statistics now of small and light weapons, the number of people they are killing is much more than normal conventional warfare, because everybody now has a gun. Most people have arms in their houses. Bandits have access to AK-47 and so many other sophisticated arms that even our military do not have. So that is where I think the problem lies. People responsible for ensuring these things do not happen whether it's at the land borders or the sea borders, need to take responsibility.
Now, the conversation about proliferation of arms also come with the issue of, the porosity of the border. We've talked about how porous the Nigerian border is. People have pointed to, say, Nigeria-Niger border, for instance, in that axis of the northwestern part of the region as a major problem, in terms of checking this proliferation of firearms. Are we doing enough, in making sure that our borders are safe and that we have control over these borders? Because it's seemingly every day it seems that, look, we do not have control over these borders.
Well, it's obvious. I don't have the data, but it's obvious we're not doing well, because if you look at the arms coming in every day, and recall that for every firearm you shoot, you have to replenish it with a bullet. So meaning even supplies are coming in. It's not only about the arms. These people have never run out of supply of ammunition. Two, look at our human trafficking issue. Our sisters down from Edo are moved. These are human beings. Now, if you cannot stop human beings from moving across 1,500 kilometers through Agadez, Niger, down to the sea border where they cross to Europe, it means that some people are not doing their job. So I feel every country needs to control its borders. Even the US is struggling, I agree. But we have to deploy a lot of technology and other things to ensure that our borders are secure.
All right. Now, there was a jailbreak yesterday in Jos Plateau State.
Yes.
And we are hearing that troops have taken control, or I would say have, surrounded the prison there in Jos Plateau State. But then one would say, troops are there. What about the prison officials and the prison officers and all of that? I say that to say that our military, our troops seem to be now, concentrated in handling internal affairs.
Yeah.
When they are supposed to be, say for instance, at the borders and all of that, protecting Nigeria's territory and all of that. What do we need to do to change this? Because the military seem to be shouldering the responsibilities of other security agencies that we have. We have the prisons, we have NCDC, we have the police, and so on. But again, whenever anything happens, the military comes in. So what are we, supposed to do, differently this time around?
Well, the Nigerian police is the agency responsible for maintenance of law and order domestically. The military is called in when they are overwhelmed with their work. Well, it's unfortunate that most of our issues, the military are even overstretched. That I know for a fact. They are in everywhere. They are overstretched. God forbid now we have a war. I don't know what we're going to do. External war with another country because they are solving domestic problems. So it just shows that there's low capacity within the ones responsible for domestic prevention of crime and domestically. Basically, it's the police. It's the responsibility of the police. And so if they are calling the military, it means there's shortage of number or they need support. Just like in the NSAS issue in Lagos, the police were overwhelmed. They had to call in the military to come and support to restore law and order.
Okay. Now we are seeing a renowned scholar, Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, issuing a statement saying that the position of the government declaring bandits as terrorists is aimed at, well, one would say for political expediency. Are you of that opinion as well?
No, I'm not. What Sheikh Gumi is doing, in my view, is a noble idea. He's a scholar. He's a religious scholar. So I expect him to be very humanitarian in his approach. And there are different ways of solving crime and solving wars. Some are kinetic, some non-kinetic. So his approach is the civil way, if I may use that word, of talking to them. So it's understandable when you understand his background. But from history, this kind of domestic terrorists, now we are seeing them from history. If you go to South America, Latin America, if you go to Asia, all of them, this kind of wars, you solve them through military means. That is my view. Sitting down with them on the negotiating table is likely not going to work. And the reason for that is the economics of it. These are people that are used to earning maybe 100,000 naira a month from sale of cows, sale of, so I'm just giving a rough figure. It might actually be lower than that. Now you kidnap somebody and you're seeing 10 million naira. It's just basic common sense that nobody is going to drop his income level from 10 million naira down to 100,000 naira. That's why it's going to continue. And now it has reached a level where it has become a war economy. The more they are making much more money by doing their activities, so it's not going to, and that's my reason. It's not like nobody wants a civil solution to solve a problem. Nobody wants to kill anybody. But history has shown, I recall an article by one of your former staff, Mahmoud Jega, that showed how many wars, this kind of insurgencies are ended through wars. There is not every war that ends on the negotiating table. Usually wars end on the negotiating table when it's between one country and another, but internally, I don't think so.
I mean, from the records we have, you know, there's some states in the northwestern part of the country have initiated, you know, these negotiations at one point or the other. Sokoto State, Zamfara State, and all of that. And how much of results have we seen? Zero. You know, from that.
Well, all those that tried to negotiate with them are, if I recall, Sokoto's tried, Zamfara tried, Kazena tried, Niger tried. From the data, the number of killings has escalated by way more than 100%. So that's to show you it will not work. But like I said, look at it from the view where he's coming from. A scholar cannot be the one coming out today, and he has military training as well, I know. But a scholar cannot come out and be saying, no, we should kill these people. So I understand his approach, but my own view that it's not going to work. It has shown, like you said, it has been tried in several states. It has not worked. It has been tried internationally. It has not worked.
Okay, well, some will say, does the label, you know, the name tag really matter?
It does. It does, because you see now, it means there will be more international, well, they're internationally recognized, let me put it in that way now. So when you are buying arms from abroad, it will ease your way of buying arms or making your cases to the international community when you want to address the problem. So the name matters. It does.
All right, now let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our conversation on the program. Please stay with us. right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. And we have in the studio Umar Yakubu, Executive Director, Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch, giving us perspectives on the recent proscription of bandits as terrorists. You know, a lot of people have been saying, look, what difference does it make? We've had Boko Haram, you know, that has been proscribed for more than 10 years. Instead, they've become more bolder, you know, in their approach. Same with IPOP and other, you know, other groups, you know, in the country. Well, let's look at this now. With the way our military is overstretched, what do we need to do with our other security apparatus, our other security institutions? Are we looking at increasing the manpower, or increasing training, or you know, deploying technology to bridge the gaps? What exactly should we be looking at?
Well, you have already given the answer from the last thing you said. Where Nigeria is over 2 million square meters, we're over 200 million. You have less than 100,000 police. Now, even if you recruit 1 million policemen, which you don't have the money, you can't afford it, the territory is too big. So what advanced countries are doing is very simple. Take, for example, Abuja-Kaduna Road. Instead of putting 1,000 policemen, which is a waste of resources in my view, deploy technology. You have drones that will cover a 10 square kilometers at one time. You will just have to start deploying technology to cover our area spaces, to cover our borders, to see those are coming in and going out. You need to have more intelligence at the borders to see arms are coming in, because the smaller light weapons are actually too many in this country. I can't remember the figure from the last report in the Office of the National Security Advisor. So that needs to stop, because once the arms don't stop coming in, the crimes will continue to happen. So that is what we need to do to strengthen them. So increasing numbers will not really do much. Training will help, yes, because as you are deploying more technology, you have to train them in advanced methods of curbing crime.
Right. Okay. You know, with the current, the whole security situation currently happening in the country, many would ask, is Nigeria really ready, you know, to tackle external aggression?
God forbid. Well, all our neighbors are friendly. Yes, they are friendly. Nobody, I don't think in Niger, Cameroon, Benin Republic will try anything. We are friendly with them, but in case it happens, the military are overstretched, and I don't know how. Yes, we have the military might to take on any country, though we are not an aggressive country in that sense. But right now, I hope it doesn't happen, because they are overstretched with domestic issues. So they will fight. But usually when these kind of things happen, what history has shown, when you have an external enemy, the country will unite now against the external enemy. So maybe it's even the criminals amongst the country that will join the military in helping to solve the problem.
But you know, when you say our neighbors are friendly, yes. My mind goes back to the recent invasion of a community in Taraba State, where you have soldiers suspected to be separatist soldiers from Cameroon, Ambazonian soldiers, that attacked that community. And they did that, killed, you know, about 11 people, including a traditional ruler, and left without any form of resistance. So exactly what do we, you know, look forward to with this kind of scenarios?
Yeah, that's a one-off. Yes, I agree it happened. It's unfortunate, but it's a one-off. But imagine, God forbid, Cameroon say now going to war with Nigeria. It's a different issue entirely.
And do not forget that these same Ambazonian soldiers, yes, sometime last year, came to a kind of an agreement with IPOP, you know, to form some form of alliance, you know, to deal with what they consider a common enemy, which is Nigeria in this case.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, it's still a one-off. But when a war is declared between one country and another country, you will actually see the might of the Nigerian military. I don't think, I'm not speaking for the military, but I don't think there's any neighboring country, we're friends, but there's no neighboring country that can survive the military might of Nigeria. Okay. I'm being honest with you. No, I don't think so.
Many will agree that the whole, you know, conversation around the Nigerian security situation have been talked about, have been exhausted, you know, over time. How would you, you know, describe Nigeria's approach to tackling insecurity in this decline?
Well, it's a governance issue. It's just a governance issue. You give somebody a duty to execute, and the person either executes it or he doesn't. Now, if he does it, you can say, well done. If he doesn't do it, you punish him for not executing his duty. It will continue, unfortunately. It's not like I'm happy that I'm saying this. But it's going to continue as long as there's no consequences for bad governance or for negligence of duty. You cannot have people killed every day, every state in the country, and you have the people responsible still sitting on their seats. They are not being asked why such happened or something did not happen. That's just my own view. It will continue, and so it's a governance issue.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we have to end the discussion here. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. We've been speaking with Umar Yakubu, Executive Director, Center for Physical Transparency and Integrity Watch, giving us perspectives on the rising threats of insecurity and the prescription of bandits as terrorists. Well, we hope to have you again on the program.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll be rounding up the show. Please stay with us.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the TrustTV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search TrustTV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. TrustTV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Quite a number of interesting, topic we've talked about, and sad, at the same time, Ayuba.
Very sad, and sometimes you may even say laughable, because some of the things that we've seen, like some of the videos from the jailbreak in Jos yesterday, is quite sad. When you listen to the ambience in that place, it just shows you how ill-equipped, how unprepared, how untrained, some of these our security agents are. I mean, as much as they put their lives on the line, sometimes you really wish that they have, better things to work with, in terms of equipment, in terms of what to do, in terms of emergency situations like that, because it's a very, very serious situation.
Serious indeed. There's this story, on the Daily Trust newspaper that caught my eye, where IU is telling the Nigerian youths to mobilize to grab power in 2023. Well, someone asked the question, is this really, going to change anything for the country?
Well, I mean, experts, political analysts, and all of that are of the opinion that perhaps the crop of leaders that Nigeria has now do not have the solution to 21st century problems. The problems that they are familiar with are problems of the 70s and the 80s. But these problems have evolved in themselves. The criminality itself has changed. The way in which criminal activities are being, conducted today is not the way it was done, in the 70s and the 80s. And so for that, you require fresh ideas, you require innovation, you require, just creativity on even dealing with the issues, because it's no longer like what you have in the books, like in theory and all of that. It will involve some form of creativity to actually deal with, the current issues. So
which
maybe
many
that's why
have said we've
yes.
not, began to key into that the way.
Especially, of course, if you look at also the deployment of technology, just like we are saying, some are of the opinion that, look, some of the people in offices today occupying very sensitive positions today do not know their ways around, technology and the essence and how it can actually help in making things much easier. So maybe that's why some people are saying, look, young people, do what you need to do and take over and take charge. And I mean, who knows? I mean, young population in Nigeria, constitutes the majority, of voters, in the country. So, and if all young people can actually come together, I believe that we're going to see some changes. It's going to be a game changer because, trust me, they have the numbers to make it happen. They have the numbers. All that is required is, that unity, that synergy, and that, understanding that look, we're in a dire need of something, to change in this country, because certainly Nigeria cannot continue in the way it is going right now. Truly.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. It's been quite interesting and sad at the same time, but we do hope that things change for the better. I remain Zainab Bala.
And I am Ayuela. Thank you for watching the show. Join us again tomorrow for another time on the program.